Hello, this is Mrs. Groslin down in the Blue Pod, and I'm here to show you a different way to solve some of the problems that Mr. Shaman showed you. So Mr. Shaman showed you a problem like this, where he showed you where you could find the common denominator and just kind of write it down below. And if that technique works for you and that makes sense to you, fantastic. You keep going with that technique and just maybe turn this video off right now. If you're a person that's a little bit confusing for, I would like to show you how to set your problems up vertically, up and down, so that maybe it'll make a little more sense to you. So I'm on page 23 in our textbook. Again, this is Unit 1, Lesson 8. I'd like for you to join me on number 7. And I'd like for you to have a piece of paper or a whiteboard, or if you can write really small, maybe you can fit it into your page. Most kids need to have a piece of lined paper that they're going to do that with. So first thing we've got to do is we take a look at it and we see we're doing 1/3 minus 2/9. We have different denominators, and you have to have a common denominator in order to add or subtract. So we've got to figure out what the common denominator is for 1/3 and 2/9. So right next to it, I'd like for you to write an equal sign and then a fraction bar. We're going to make a pair of equivalent fractions and then subtract going up and down. So taking a look at 3 and 9, does 3 go into 9? Yes, it does. So 9 can be our common denominator. So write 9s underneath your bar. And now it's just a matter of doing something that you've been doing this whole chapter, making equivalent fractions. You can start at the top or you can start at the bottom. Doesn't matter. I'm just going to start at the bottom. 9 times 1 is 9. 2 times 1 is 2. Now I like to write those numbers here and here above and below the equal sign, because I find when I don't do that, I tend to goof up. I multiply by the wrong number, or sometimes I write the number I'm multiplying by in that top spot, and it totally messes me up. So I've just found that I'm more likely to get the problem right if I write the numbers above and below the equal sign, and I would suggest that you do too. Sometimes people even write a little times sign in there to help them remember that they're multiplying. Look at this top fraction. 1/3 is how many 9s? 3 times what number is 9? 3. You knew that. So I'm going to multiply the numerator by 3. Whatever you multiply the denominator by, you're multiplying the numerator by. Really, it's kind of like we're multiplying by 1. 3/3 is the same as 1 whole. 1 times 3? 3. Now I have two fractions with the same denominator, and I can subtract. 3/9 minus 2/9, 1/9. Piece of cake. Done with that one. Slide over now, and we're going to try number 8. Again, I would like for you on your piece of paper to write it going up and down. Give yourself a little bit of space in between those two fractions. Once again, we have different numerators, and we have to find a common denominator. So finding the common denominator, you can do it a couple different ways. You can get out your multiplication chart and go through your 6s and 4s and find a number that they have in common. You can look to see if 4 goes into 6. Does 4 go into 6? Nope, it doesn't. Darn. Then the other thing that you can do is my strategy is I a lot of times just like to start with the bigger number. So in this case, the 6 is the bigger denominator, and I count by 6s. And I check to see if 4 will go into those numbers. Let me show you how that works. So 6 times 1 is 6, and we know 4 doesn't go into 6. 6 times 2, 12. Does 4 go into 12? Yes, it sure does. Another number that would work would be 24. Okay, so here we go. We're going to figure out what that numerator is. I'm going to pause it here, and I'm going to ask you to figure out what number goes in the numerators. I'm hoping that you came up with 10/12 and 9/12. If you didn't, pause the video and figure out where you went wrong. Now I have two numbers with the same denominator, and I can just subtract. What's 10 minus 9? Easy peasy, 1/12. Final answer. Done. Let's do one more on this page. I'd like you to slide on over to number 9. And again, we're going to write this vertically, going up and down. So 3/5 on the top, 1/4 on the bottom. Find your common denominator. Hoping you said 20 was the common denominator. You also could have done 40, 60, 80, any multiple of 20. You want the lowest one because then the numbers are the easiest to work with. Again, I'm going to pause it. I want you to make the equivalent fractions by figuring out what goes in that numerator. Check your fraction out and compare it with mine. Do you have 12/20 minus 5/20? Now that the denominators are the same, we can subtract. You should get 7/20. All right, flip your textbook over to the next page. We're going to try some of these mixed practice problems, and notice that the directions say add or subtract. So we got to kind of watch ourselves here. Take a look at number 13. Did you notice that they both have the same denominator? Awesome! We can just subtract straight across. What's 11 minus 5? 6. Now there's a little bit of a problem with 6/12. For our purposes in this unit, we're going to mark that as correct. But really, 6/12 is not the simplest form. Really, you could divide both of those numbers by the same number. You could divide them both by 2, you could divide them both by 3. The biggest number you could divide them both by is 6. If I divide this out, 6 divided by 6 is 1, 12 divided by 6 is 2. The simplest form of 6/12 would be 1/2. Okay, so if you're talking to your friends and you're bragging about how much pizza you had, are you really going to say, I ate 6/12 of the pizza? Or are you going to say, I ate half the pizza? You'd probably say 1/2. Likewise, if you need to get some ham or something from the deli at Cub Foods, you're not going to go in and say, hello, I'd like 6/12 of a pound of ham. They're going to look at you like you have 3 heads. You're going to say, hello, I'd like 1/2 of a pound. That would make more sense. So when we have fractions, we always want them to be in the simplest form. Let's try number 14. You see 2 different denominators. So again, we're going to write those go up and down. We're adding, and we don't have the same denominator, so we've got to find a common denominator. Go ahead and figure out that common denominator. Now, you could have said a number of different things. I'm hoping you saw that 4 goes into 12. 12 would be a really easy common denominator. Maybe you didn't see that. Maybe you saw 24. Excuse me. Maybe you saw 48. All of those would work, okay? If you see multiple denominators that would work, choose the smallest or the least one. All right, I'm going to pause it. I want you to figure out the equivalent fractions and then add those. 8/12 is the correct answer. However, 8/12 is another fraction that's not in its simplest form. We would mark this correct for our purposes in Unit 1, but eventually we're going to want you to simplify this, and you could divide both of those numbers by 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2. 12 divided by 4 is 3. So 2/3 is another equivalent fraction for 8/12. Simplest form is 2/3. Again, 8/12 would be totally fine. All right, we're going to do one more, 5th graders. You've got one more left in you. Let's go over to number 18. I'll clear off my board a little bit here. And I'm going to set it up. I want you to set it up on your paper, find a common denominator, and subtract. Ready, set, go. I came up with the answer 11/18, and I used 18 as my denominator. If you used 18 and didn't get 11, compare your work to my work and see where you went wrong. I know not all of you used 18. I know that some of you used 36 as your common denominator, and you came up with 22/36 as your answer. Some of you may have chosen 64, or yeah, maybe not. You would have gotten 33 64s. Sorry, 54s. So if you multiplied the 6 and 9 together and got 54, this is your answer. Now, each of these are not in its simplest form. These two I can see are both even, so I know I'd have to divide them by 2. And guess what I get if I divide them by 2? 11/18. I can make this a little higher for you. Here, these can both be divided by 3. 33 divided by 3, 11. 54 divided by 3, 18. So these are all different names, all equivalent fractions for 11/18. Again, for our Unit 1 as a 5th grader, we're hoping that you have any of those answers. Any of those would be marked correct. I'm hoping that this helps. I'm hoping that you understand it a little bit better. If you're still confused, please, please, please reach out to your teacher. We can Zoom with you. We could help you in the classroom, but we've got to know that you're confused. So be open, be honest, let us help you, and we'll get through this all together. Have a great day.